And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above all the puerile and vacuous forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly and permanently ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone, and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. I'm back. Now, if you're wondering where I was yesterday, there was a little criminal activity that happened at Cowboy State Politics headquarters. Don't worry, it's well in hand. Nobody came within 100 yards of the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone. However, there was some criminal activity that was going on, and when I'm able to release some details, I'm going to make the perpetrator of said crime famous, or at least I want to. You see, the problem with a lot of these crimes is you have to, and it's not really a problem, but the police have to have time to work the case, and, you know, it doesn't happen as fast as it does on TV. So anyway, I'll keep you updated as things progress. We've missed a lot in the last day. Biden's been all over the place. The Trump trial has both sides have rested. The defense is done. The prosecution is done. Interesting thing about that is Donald Trump didn't testify. And typically what that tells you in any sort of criminal prosecution is that the defense is pretty sure they've got it in the bag. And it would be hard not for them not to have it in the bag. Let's be honest. Michael Cohen was exposed to be a liar. He was exposed to have lied on the stand, and they got him to admit that he's a thief. So, of course, you know, any reasonable jury. Now, I understand they're in New York, and maybe finding a reasonable juror in that entire state is difficult, but any reasonable jury should be able to look at all that evidence and say, well, there's not enough to convict a former president of this crime, which, by the way, none of them have actually said what the crime is. It's just some vague prosecution, and it's all political theater. And Alvin Bragg and, frankly, the state of New York they're all in it together. The judge should have never let that thing come to trial. But, you know, the judge's daughter is a fundraiser for the Biden campaign. So, I mean, you would think, yeah, I mean, that judge is entirely biased. And I don't really think that we have, you know, there's any question about that. All of this is politically motivated, and none of it is justice. You know, you'll often hear me refer to our system as a legal system, not as a justice system. The word justice has connotations to it that leads one to believe that things are fair. They're not. Everybody knows that we have a two-tiered system of justice. And if you don't think that, then frankly, you're just not paying attention. If you're a Democrat, you can, or illegal immigrant for that matter, you can get away with a whole bunch of stuff. But if you're a conservative, man, they'll slam you in the hooskow faster than you can shake a stick at it. Quicker than a lamb's tail. All right, I'm done with the metaphors. But point is, we don't have a justice system. We have a legal system. And there's a big difference between the two. Legal system means that you're just operating on the laws, regardless of if they're fair or not. And what we're seeing from President Trump's trial is not justice, not at all. In fact, it's political prosecution, and it's one of the things that our founders fought to protect us from. A republic requires constant vigilance, and when we are not vigilant and we're not performing the maintenance on our republic, things like this happen. So we can only hope that there's at least one reasonable juror in New York that says, no, you didn't convict Donald Trump. But we're going to see. And here's another interesting point about this trial. And this was on Fox News just a minute ago, that the jury has been released until the 28th of May. So they're going to go home and they're going to spend an entire Memorial Day weekend and then come back and are expected to be fair. Now, the truth is, a long weekend like that, well, pretty much a whole week and a weekend, you can't tell me that one of them is not going to flip on the news and watch CNN or PMSNBC or ABC or CBS and get only one side of the story. I think the judge did that on purpose so that the jury could be influenced. Again, this is not a justice system. This is a legal system. Now, if you're watching on Cowboy State Politics Live on the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, you'll notice the chalkboard I have in the studio is chocked full of interviews that are ready to go. The truth is, I've already got a couple of them in the bag that I haven't played yet for you. And I've got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 more to do today and tomorrow. So I've got plenty of candidate interviews lined up, and we're going to kind of play those here and there. Now, Wednesday on the podcast it's going to be a big day on Cowboy State Politics. I have an interview with Harmeet Dillon. Now, if you don't know who she is, Harmeet is the lawyer that was principally responsible for keeping Donald Trump on the Colorado ballot. She also ran against Ronna McDaniel for the chair of the Republican National Committee. And right now, she is representing at least a couple of people in lawsuits against their medical providers for gender reassignment surgery that was performed on them when they were minors. So there's a lot of stuff that Harmeet Dillon is involved in, and we talked about most of it during our interview. I'm going to play that for you tomorrow on the podcast, and I'll probably play it for you on the Independence Network as well. I'm telling you, it's probably one of the best interviews I've ever done, which is saying a lot because I've done a lot of them. But anyway, don't miss that tomorrow on the podcast, Harmeet Dillon, and I'll try to get that thing published sharply at 10 o'clock in the morning. So you'll have plenty of content coming from Cowboy State Politics tomorrow. But let's get to the news. All the stuff I missed while I was dealing with police and perpetrators and trying to track down heinous crimes against your illustrious host and the Cowboy State Politics studio. So anyway, let's get to the news. Now, in our new segment called Yet More Liberal Rot, stop signs have replaced traffic lights at busy Oakland intersections. Yeah, and this is reportedly on account of the area's homeless stealing all the copper wiring out of all of the stoplights. My friends, when are people in California going to learn that their policies are are definitely what is creating the hellhole that they're living in? The homeless problem, the poop on the streets, the San Francisco Pier being turned into a homeless encampment. It is all the result of liberal policies. And now, streetlights at busy intersections are replaced with stop signs. Now, I want to explain, just before I get into the article, how problematic this is. Have you ever driven around and pulled up to a four-way stop and realized that nobody at the four-way stop really has any idea how to operate it? I am continually amazed driving around even Little Sheridan, Wyoming, at how many people don't understand what to do at a four-way stop. And it's really easy. If you pull up to the four-way stop and there's somebody on your right, they go first. Or it is the first person that pulls up and stops at a four-way stop that goes. And if you're completely unsure, it's always the person on your right. And if you happen to be the person that pulls up and stops at the four-way stop first, well, then you get to go. It's no more complicated than that. But if you're driving around Sheridan, nobody has any idea how to operate these darn things. And all the time, you'll see somebody on the opposite side of the intersection wave you through the four-way stop as if they're some sort of traffic guard or something. Absolutely moronic, completely stupid. Now, I must assume, since people are far more intelligent in Wyoming than they are in California, that more people know how to operate a four-way stop here than they do in California. I mean, it just stands to reason. So replacing a traffic light with a stop sign at a busy intersection seems to be a little problematic. And I quote, "Homeless people have allegedly stolen the wiring and electricity from the city, leading to outages." The city of Oakland, California, has replaced traffic lights with stop signs at one intersection, and some area residents believe that criminal behavior on part of the local homeless persons led to the potentially dangerous crime. Earlier this month, the intersection of East 12th Street and 16th Avenue, about 2 miles east of downtown Oakland, went from a traffic light to a four-way stop. Refer to my previous comments about how now nobody knows how to operate a four-way stop. A Fox News report described the intersection as busy. Now, video shows the intersection teeming with businesses and vehicles. According to sources who spoke to KPIX, which is the outlet that first reported this, the city made the change to stop signs because people living in a nearby homeless encampment have been stealing copper wire from electrical boxes connected to the traffic lights at the intersection. As a result, the lights malfunctioned for months, often blinking red or blacking out entirely. Mason Young described the change to a four-way stop as, quote, putting a Band-Aid on the problem, but noted that a Band-Aid was better than bleeding out. His metaphor is graphic, but it may also be apt, as the malfunctioning traffic light caused a truck to slam into an auto repair shop located on one corner of the intersection. The owner of the repair shop, Tam Lay, or Lee, however you pronounce his last name, claimed the move to a four-way stop sign is, quote, that the city is giving up on us. Lay has owned the shop for more than 25 years, but he said the homeless encampment, which now extends nearly 3 blocks around East 12th Street, may soon force him out. Quote, many businesses are already closed down on East 12th Street, and I don't know how long we're going to be here, because once they move to our side of the sidewalk, we will be gone. The homeless not only create blight along the street, but perhaps steal copper wiring, which is why you have a four-way stop and not a traffic light. A spokesperson for the city told KPIX that the city placed heavy cement blocks atop the access points for the electrical boxes, but that determined thieves pull the blocks off and steal the electricity anyway. Yet another case of liberal rot coming from the state with more liberal rot than any other place in the United States. My friends, if you live in California, you need to get the heck out of there and move somewhere. Surely any place is better than California. I mean, even if you move to the People's Republic of Jackson, that's still preferable to any place in California. Now, according to the Federalist, and I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that both the defense and the prosecution have rested in Donald Trump's, whatever they want to call it, hush money trial, non-disclosure agreement trial, payoff, whatever the case may be. But both sides have rested. Well, today and yesterday, I guess it was today, this morning, that Michael Cohen admitted to stealing $30,000 from the Trump organization. Now, I don't know about you or anybody else, but if you ask me, 30 grand is a heck of a lot of money. And Michael Cohen on the stand just straight up admitted to stealing $30,000 of Donald Trump's money while he was his attorney. And I quote, the only discernible crime in Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's lawfare case against former President Donald Trump is that the star witness, convicted liar Michael Cohen, admitted Monday on the stand that he stole from the Trump organization because he was, quote, angry. Cohen admitted that in 2017, he asked Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg for $50,000 to pay back tech firm Redfinch. Cohen paid the firm $20,000, but pocketed the $30,000 for himself because he was angry that he didn't get a bonus from Trump that he thought he deserved. So wait a minute, just because you're angry at your employer, it means you can rip them off and lie to them? Michael Cohen is a terrible witness. In fact, he is the worst possible witness. He's a convicted liar, convicted perjurer, and now he's an admitted thief. Quote, "You stole from the Trump organization, right?" Blanche asked, and this is according to PMSNBC. "Yes, sir," Cohen testified. Quote, the reply, "You did steal from the Trump organization based upon an expected reimbursement, correct?" And Cohen's reply is yes, sir. Cohen later testified that the amount he stole was double than what he originally claimed because he was given money to account for taxes, $30,000 worth. So the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, puts this guy on the stand. Now, remember, I was talking about reasonable jurors before. Any reasonable juror that hears that the guy on the stand is an absolute thief, that he stole from the person that he's talking about, lying about, that he's lied to Congress, wouldn't give this guy 1 ounce of credibility. Now, I have a piece of sound from a news report. This may be PMSNBC. It's not CNN, and I'm pretty sure it's not Fox News. But listen to the report straight from right outside the courthouse.
Let me read for you the exchange between Todd Blanche and Michael Cohen. So you only gave him $20,000 and you took $30,000. Blanche, you stole from the Trump organization, right? Cohen says, yes, sir. Blanche goes on later on. He says, you did steal from the Trump organization based upon the expected reimbursement, correct? And he says, yes, sir. So again, that is breaking it out because essentially they walked through what it is that Michael Cohen actually paid Renfridge. And this goes back to, Jose, what you were just talking about, in this brown paper bag, all cash. He came to the Trump organization, an individual who worked for Renfridge, to collect this payment, $20,000, in which Michael Cohen paid out to this individual. The other $30,000 Michael Cohen kept to himself. Subsequently, why Todd Blanche is now saying, okay, so you stole from the Trump organization, correct? And Michael Cohen says, yes, correct. I believe what during this cross we're trying to get at essentially here is even during this time in which Michael Cohen contends that he was very loyal to the Trump organization, protecting the former president, protecting his boss at the time, a man he has worked with for so long, right, since 2007, who is seen more as a father figure even, that he would then subsequently steal from him because he felt as if he was not getting the appropriate bonus that he was due, that he was expected guy. Certainly a big exchange there, I have to say, a momentous kind of exchange between Michael Cohen, Todd Blanche. Michael Cohen says, yes, I in fact stole from the Trump organization.
I just love it when the prosecution's case blows up in their face, especially when they're trying to frame a former president. More after the break. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a selection of better news, entertainment, and commentary than right here on the Independence Network, with great voices like Joey Carenti from Just Blame Joey, Ken Pendergraft from The Ramble Room, Tom Kelly from Wide Right Turn, and the lovely Christine from The Hair Affair. And of course, my program, Cowboy State Politics, Wyoming's most listened to political program. Also, don't forget to check out the articles section at the website, independencenetwork.us. It's loaded with op-eds, commentary, and news from all around the Cowboy State. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program.
I remember I was 8 years old with a blank tape waiting by the radio. Come on, man, play Back in Black. I want to play it back on repeat. I remember Panama City, long nights with a girl named Christy. She took me down to the Paradise City, then up on Cripple Creek. Still something about a guitar cranked up, head banging to the beat of the bass drum. Still something about a sold out show in the second row with your girl on your shoulder. Still something about raising a cold beer when the lights go down and the crowd cheers. From Delta Soul to Abbey Road, sweet child to sweet home. Still something about rock and roll, rock and roll. Still something about rock and roll, rock and roll. I saw a Journey in the big Coliseum. No dancing, no lip syncing. I tell you this, don't fight the feeling.
Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy, State Politics Live. Wyoming's conservative voice, documented to be almost always right, just about 99% of the time. It's been a while since I looked at the numbers. You know, they change every day. But when you've got, over 600 and, I think I'm over 680 episodes, it's really tough to, get up to that 99% threshold. In fact, I think it's like 98.87 or something like that. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is that the Wyoming fake press, fake news, whatever you want to call them, they can't even come close to that. And frankly, they shouldn't even try. I mean, every article they print has something wrong with it. And, I mean, it could be a full-time job correcting everything that they've printed. Now, if you're bored tonight or you have nothing to do, actually not if you're bored, but the ladies of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus are holding a virtual town hall this evening. And I believe it starts at, 7 o'clock, Facebook Live. So if you want to listen to some of the ladies from the Freedom Caucus, you can do that. Facebook Live tonight, 7 p.m. The ladies of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. That'll be Representative Abby Angelos, Pepper Ottman, Jeanette Ward, Tamara Trujillo, Sarah Penn, Rachel Rodriguez-Williams, and Tommy Strzok. And by the way, I just published an interview with Representative Rachel yesterday on the podcast. It's really good. We talk about her efforts on pro-life legislation and her feelings on the Freedom Caucus. So go check that out. And again, if you don't have anything to do, and if you want to hear from some of the ladies from the Wyoming Freedom Caucus tonight, 7 o'clock, Facebook Live. Now, Biden has a new tax plan, as you might have guessed. It's much like the tax plan that comes out of the Wyoming legislature. Big headlines, kind of short on help for you, but of course, none of them are really interested in helping you anyway, which is why in Wyoming they passed House Bill 45, which locks in historically high property taxes. That's right, my friends. All these people that are saying that House Bill 45 was a great piece of legislation. By the way, that's the one that Barry Crago is running on in the House or the Senate District 22 race. He's going to be facing Mark Jennings in that, and that should be a great race to watch. I mentioned it on the morning show this morning, but Representative Jennings was apparently sent a questionnaire by the Cow Pie. And one of the questions was, so what are the main differences between you and your opponent? And Representative Jennings' reply was, I actually vote with the Republican Party platform most of the time. Hilarious, pulling no punches, but that is Representative Jennings. If you've ever met him, he's straight and to the point and doesn't really mess around. And I mean, he is the probably one of the only stalwart conservatives in the Wyoming House of Representatives. He's almost always at the top of the rating sites. In fact, on WyoVote, I think he's number 1 right now. So anyway, going to be a great race to watch. And as far as it relates to taxes, it's a great rate to wash too, because both Jennings and Crago have very, very, very different and opposite views on how we fix our broken property tax system. Barry Crago, of course, is running on locking in historically high property tax rates. That's right. According to Barry Crago, what you paid last year is never going to go down. In fact, it's only going to go up from there. So that's not reform. That's not relief. That's not any of those things. That's locking in historically high property tax rates. Now, Jennings's vision is decidedly different. He thinks we should actually pay less in property taxes, that the state doesn't need a surplus of $700 million, which is what it was last year. And he doesn't buy the argument that, well, you get this property tax refund. The point that Mark Jennings would make is that's theft. If you're taking more than you need, that is legalized theft. And Barry Crago is all about that. Well, Biden is no different. And he's pushing a new capital gains tax plan. There's a very, very intriguing article, op-ed by Senator Mike Lee on the Blaze right now. Let me just go through part of it for you. Quote, Galt's Gulch was the secluded community of innovators and industrialists participating in the Great Strike depicted in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. They fled to escape a society that stifled their innovation, burdened them with excessive regulations, and confiscated the fruits of their labor. President Joe Biden would do well to note what could happen when society pushes its most productive members too far. They may choose to withdraw their talents altogether, which is what happened in Atlas Shrugged. One of my favorite books. The storyline's incredible. It's about how a bunch of industrialists and the intelligentsia, all the people that make all the cool stuff that we enjoy each and every day, just threw up their hands and said, "I've had enough. Your confiscatory taxes, your rampant spending, your command and control economy. We've had enough, and we're out." And so they just stopped participating, and they all ended up at Galt's Gulch. Biden's latest budget proposal, which aims to hike the capital gains tax rate to an unprecedented 44.6%, threatens to do just that. The proposed figure has sent shivers down the spines of investors, small business owners, and the economically literate alike. What is particularly galling about this proposal is not just the sheer audacity of the higher tax rate, but the fundamentally flawed economic rationale underpinning it. If Biden's policies prevail, one can only wonder how long it will be before our atlases decide to shrug, leaving us a poorer society that has driven most of them away. First, let's dissect Biden's proposal. The increase includes a bump in the top individual income tax rate from 37% to 39.6%, combined with an expansion of the net investment income tax from 3.8% to 5%. In practical terms, long-term capital gains and qualified dividends above $1 million will be taxed at ordinary income rates, effectively raising the top federal tax rate on those earnings to 44.6%. When combined with state taxes, the total could soar to nearly 60% in high-tax states like California and New York. To put that in simple terms, that means 60 cents out of every dollar that these people earn will be taken from them in taxes. That is absolutely wrong. It is theft. It is if you and I were to steal 60 cents out of every dollar from somebody, would be thrown in the slammer so faster than the person that stole from us yesterday, frankly. But I mean, it's absolutely unconscionable. We saw high tax rates like this with Jimmy Carter. And, it drove the economy straight into a chasm. It wasn't just a ditch, like that's the phrase that a lot of politicians like to use. We're driving the economy into a ditch. No. This is a chasm. When you're proposing to take 60 cents out of every dollar from somebody, that's absolutely unconscionable, and it's theft. Consider the implications. A couple spends decades building a small business, investing their blood, sweat, and treasure, and ultimately deciding to sell their life's work as they retire. Under Biden's proposal, their reward for years of hard work and risk-taking would be a punitive tax rate, stripping away nearly half of their gains. This isn't taxing the rich. It's looting America's entrepreneurs and employers. The truth is, my friends, that Almost all of the jobs in America are created by small business owners. It's not people like Walmart or, Target or any of those big businesses. Most of the jobs in our country are provided by small business owners. And a top tax rate of almost half is absolutely legalized theft. Anybody that votes for this, you should campaign against them. You should call. You should talk to your friends. Nobody should vote for any of these people that vote for this insane policy. More after the break. It's spring in the Cowboy State, or as Albert Somers likes to say, spring-ish. Time to get the motorcycle out of the garage, time to go up the mountain, time to get outside and tromp around. And when you're doing that, you still want to make sure that you take care of your feet. The best way that you can do that is order a pair of Kenai boot socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. I know, your mama always told you that wool socks are only to be worn during the winter. But times have changed, my friends. The Kenai boot socks from the Buffalo Wool Company will not only keep your feet nice and toasty warm, they'll keep them cool and dry in the summer. Trust me, these are the most incredible socks that you're ever going to put on your feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. You're definitely not going to be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Watch out. Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger with programs like the podcast, the Independence Network. And frankly, my friends, the Independence Network is only going to get stronger with great voices like Just Blame Joey, Ken Pendergraft, Wide Right Turn, The Hair of Hair with Christine, and of course, my program, Cowboy State Politics, documented to be almost always right, 99 or almost 99% of the time, using the gifts given to me by God himself. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to what the guy that holds the nuclear codes has been doing lately, but in a recent speech, he suggested that he was vice president during the pandemic. Yes, you heard that right. Guess who was in office during the pandemic? Donald Trump, not Barack Obama. And I quote, excuse me, if I could read, that would help. President Biden declared Sunday that things got kind of bad when he was vice president during the COVID-19 pandemic. even though the virus hit more than 3 years after he left office. The 81-year-old Biden, who finished his 8 years as Barack Obama's VP in January of 2017, suggested he was still in that post at the time of the outbreak during the campaign event with the NAACP. Quote, when I was vice president, things got kind of bad during the pandemic, and what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit, help fix it. Here he is saying it.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
Yeah. Spend way more time with Joe Biden than anybody wants to during the pandemic, which that never happened. Joe Biden is making up things in his mind, which is a classic symptom of dementia. Putting together different pieces and parts of somebody's life and then crafting a story around them. What's happening is President Biden's brain can't figure out what actually happened. So it selects different events and then tries to put them together in some sort of cohesive story. Now, the scary thing about this is President Joe Biden is the guy that has the nuclear codes. He's in charge of everything, and yet he doesn't remember who was president during the pandemic, when he was vice president. 8 years of his life. 8 years is a really long time. Most marriages don't last that long. And yet Joe Biden can't remember what he was doing during the pandemic. Now, let me ask you a question. What were you doing during the pandemic? Well, we can all answer that one pretty easily. We were all sitting in our house because somebody told us to shut down the government and shut down all our small businesses. That's what we were doing. I can remember things that happened 8 or 10 years ago, and none of them involve being in places that I never was or doing things that I never did. But Joe Biden can, because he's off of his rocker. And when he's not jacked up on whatever medication that they gave him, he's making up stories. The article continues. It's unclear what event Biden was actually referring to in his remarks, though the then VP claimed in 2011 the Biden administration had saved America's auto industry from the brink of extinction following the 2008 financial crisis. Biden's most recent blunder followed his commencement speech at Morehouse College in Atlanta, where he was caught on camera applauding the valedictorian who called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in his speech. The president has pressed for a respite in the fighting in Gaza, but has held steady in his support of Israel in its war against Hamas. Ahead of Biden's remarks, some faculty and students at the historically black all-male institution vowed not to attend the ceremony in protest. My friends, I'm going to cover this whole Morehouse speech in just a second, but this is just another example of Biden's declining mental state. He's not capable of being the president of the United States, and everybody in that administration knows it, which means that the president is not in control, that somebody else in the White House is, and it's probably some unelected bureaucrat. That's how Democrats work. They would rather unelected people, tyrants, have control over your life. Now, the historically black college speech that I mentioned just a minute ago, it was nothing more than race pandering, which is pretty much the only thing that that Biden is capable of. And I quote from the New York Post editorial board, Biden's divisive, defeatist, historically black college and university speech proves that he has nothing to offer black voters. And I quote, President Biden's message for the fresh-faced African-American college grads, America is a racist place and Americans are set up to fail. In his Sunday commencement speech at historically black Morehouse College in Atlanta, the pres vowed to, quote, call out the poison of white supremacy and to root out the systemic racism. Quote, it's natural to wonder if democracy actually works for you, he told the ranks of young black men and black Americans, quote, have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. He also threw Israel under the bus again, explicitly calling for an immediate ceasefire and assuring the crowd that he supports peaceful and nonviolent protest, a fine way to describe demonstrations that have included assaults on police and destruction of private property. The speech was divisive, defeatist, and condescending. Hardly the, quote, "oh, the places you will go" inspiring message that college grads deserve as they celebrate their accomplishments and enter adult life. But it was also revealing. Joe Biden is now a one-trick pony, and that trick is pandering hard to the far left. Look, Biden is hemorrhaging support among Black, Hispanic, and young voters, but mainly among the working class, which is furious at what he's done to the economy. Bitter inflation, soaring interest rates, few new jobs except in government or healthcare, and of course, the border crisis. Yet all he and his handlers can think to do is pander to the Nicole Hannah-Jones type of race-obsessed academic coastal elites. Who he wasn't talking about in his demented diatribe is average Black Americans who are worried about paying the mortgage and putting food on the table. Biden isn't just losing support because he hasn't apologized often enough for America's supposed racism. Voters of all races are tired of seeing their wallets drained by the disaster of Bidenomics. And it goes on for another couple paragraphs. But you can find that op-ed at the New York Post. It's pretty short, but it's to the point. The only thing that Joe Biden can do is pander. Talk about institutional racism and systemic racism that doesn't really exist in America. But the only way that Joe Biden is going to win, and I don't think that he is going to, but the only chance he has is to stoke the fires of racism like he always has. Now, if you ask Karine Jean-Pierre, she'll tell you that Biden isn't a racist. No, not at all. Take a listen.
Be tough, but it will be fair.
But he didn't say he wanted to use, excuse me, sorry to interrupt. He didn't say, I would, on day one, I will use enhanced enforcement to improve the processing of people at the border. He said, I will shut the border down, which suggests a total rejection of all people attempting to cross the border without a visa or without proper authorization, which, you know.
That appears to be the wrong soundbite. It's labeled why Joe Biden is not racist, but clearly isn't that. However, we know that he is. And here's the follow-up to that. I've got a montage that I put together a while ago for you of all of the racist stuff that Joe Biden has said. Now, remember, Joe Biden's not a racist. That's what his administration says all the time. That's what Karine Jean-Pierre says in the White House press briefing room, that he's definitely not a racist, nor has he ever been. Really? Check this stuff out.
So a home owned by a Black family on one side of a highway, built by the same builder on the other side of the highway, and a white guy living in it, the white guy's home is valued more than the black guy's. No, I know you know it, but guess what? That's how you build generational wealth.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
And two of the great artists of our time representing the groundbreaking legacy of hip-hop in America, LL Cool J. By the way, that man's got biceps bigger than my thighs. I think he's...
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Yeah. So a home owned by a Black family on one side of a highway, built by the same builder on the other side of the highway, and a white guy living in it.
Okay, all right, you get the point. My point here is that Joe Biden is a racist, and he always has been one. The guy can't stop from saying racist stuff. I mean, he did give the eulogy at Robert Byrd's funeral. Robert Byrd was one of the top guys in the Ku Klux Klan. Joe Biden opposed desegregating schools. There is a long history of all of the racist stuff that Joe Biden has done and said over the years, and voters should never let him out of that. The truth is that Joe Biden will continue to be to be the racist that he always has been. And no matter how much his handlers try to cover it up, there's no possible way that they're going to be able to. Everybody knows Joe Biden's a racist, and he's never going to change. We'll continue with the program after another completely obscene profit timeout.
I'm driving black on black. Just got my license back. I've got this feeling in my face. This train is coming off the track. I'll ask Malide if the devil needs a ride because the angel of my ride ain't hanging out with me tonight. I'm driving past your house while you was thinking out. I got the car door opened up so you can jump in on the run. Your mom don't know that you were missing. She'd be pissed if she can see the parts of you that I've been kissing, screaming. No, we're never gonna quit. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Just acting like we're animals. No matter where we go, 'cause everybody knows we're just a couple animals. So come on, baby, get in. Get in, just get in. Check out the trouble we're in.
You can listen to Cowboy State Politics live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a better source of news, entertainment, and commentary than on Cowboy State Politics Live. You know, the program you're listening to right now. And frankly, why would you want to look anywhere else anyway? Let's be honest, only a liberal redcoat commie would do that. And if you want to listen to my podcast, you can find it at cowboystatepolitics.com or anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. If your name is Sleepy Joe Biden and you can't remember if you put socks on this morning or not, well, I can't really help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president of the United States. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone, burning through another busy broadcast hour on the Independence Network. All of us are very aware of all of the hoaxes that come out every election season. That Republicans are going to push Granny off of a cliff, that we're going to cancel Social Security and Medicare, that we're going to drive the economy over the cliff, that we're all going to die in some sort of giant economic disaster. We're all used to the rhetoric that comes out every election season. And why shouldn't we be, my friends? Because they repeat it all of the time. But there's a new hoax that the Democrats are going to trot out each and every election after this. And it's the Russia collusion hoax, and it's all primed and ready for the 2024 election. NBC News and the New York Times have already started to replay it. Now, there's a great piece by Molly Hemingway entitled NBC News, New York Post, or New York Times replay the Russia hoax for the 2024 election. Now, I love Molly Hemingway. I think she's a great author, great investigative journalist. Here's what she has to say. Quote, as Joe Biden's presidency fails and his 2024 campaign falters, the media and other Democrats are hitting the big red panic button and bringing back their Russia collusion hoax for just another spin. Joe Scarborough, the PMS NBC host who sets Democrat talking points, spent last week claiming that Biden's 2024 troubles aren't due to his unpopular policies or lack of mental acuity, but rather a secret and nefarious Russian plot to help Donald Trump win the election. Scarborough excitedly claimed that Republicans in Congress were working with Russian President Vladimir Putin to help Trump win. Putin endorsed Biden in February, for whatever that's worth. Democrats' ability to push their Russia hoax 2.0 is hampered by the previous Russia collusion hoax they peddled from 2016 all the way through 2019. That lie was exhaustively and painstakingly debunked, but Scarborough has bitterly clung to it and wants to rewrite history. Well, of course, he's a Democrat. That's what they all do. One of the maddening things that you will see out there, people talking about the Russia, is the Russia hoax. They keep talking about it, Scarborough said, calling out the Wall Street Journal for its reporting against the Russia collusion hoax. Quote, Russian disinformation is being spread on the House floor by Republican members. Here we have more reporting of what has never really stopped. That is, Vladimir Putin and Russia are trying to help Donald Trump get elected again. Hoax? There is no hoax, Scarborough shouted. The Russia collusion hoax was the incredibly false and damaging lie that Trump conspired with Russia to steal the election, not the fairly obvious fact that Russia spreads propaganda. Scarborough leaves out the whole actual hoax in his retelling. He doesn't mention the fabricated Steele dossier, the debunked P-tape, the lies about Michael Cohen going to Prague for secret meetings with Russian officials, the fraudulent efforts to secure warrants to spy on Trump affiliates, the spying by Rodney Jaffe, the Alpha Bank hysteria, or any of the other falsehoods that the media and other Democrats have peddled for years. The cause of last week's Scarborough hysteria was an anonymously sourced New York Times story describing a single video it claimed had been produced by Russian operatives purporting to be Ukrainians. The video, which may or may not have been watched by any Americans, apparently claimed Ukrainians were being told by the CIA to help Joe Biden win. Of that, I have no doubt. The anonymous current and former CIA officials said this meant Russians were meddling in U.S. elections. The story was exactly like the hundreds of other New York Times stories that ran in the first iteration of the Russia collusion hoax. Anonymous intelligence sources, lack of substantiation, and outlandish inferences. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, Rogue Island, as they were known during the Constitutional Convention, tweeted out a link to the story with a note, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia. How obvious does it have to be? The CIA spokesman told the New York Times the claim made in the video was patently false and the type of disinformation that the intelligence community has long warned about. He added, somewhat hilariously, that, quote, the CIA is a foreign-focused organization that takes our obligation to remain uninvolved in American politics and elections very seriously. So, my friends, this is just another example of the lengths that the mainstream media will go to get President Joe Biden reinstalled as the president of the United States. I mean, the only place that they should be working to install him in is a nursing home, because that's the only place that he really belongs. President Joe Biden is off his rocker, and the only reason all the Democrats are in the tank for him is they know that once President Trump is back in the White House, it is going to be lights out for all of these bureaucrats that have been running the country into the ground for the last 4 years. All of them, including Joe Scarborough, are in hysterics over it, simply because they know that there's a strong likelihood that President Donald Trump is going back to the White House. Despite all of their efforts to prosecute him, we're going to see the demise, probably, of his trial in New York. And if not, it's going to be reversed on appeal. They all know this, but their strategy wasn't really to convict him. I mean, they hoped maybe, perhaps, that Donald Trump would be convicted, but that would just be icing on the cake. Really, their whole motivation is to keep him in a courtroom and keep him off the campaign trail. But as they have seen, their every action has been rebuffed by American voters, that every time they try to go after Trump, his poll numbers go up. And it's because Americans are tired of the two-tiered system of justice. We see it every day, my friends, from the local level on up to Donald Trump's trial. as I started out the program, if you're a Republican or if you're a conservative and you get caught doing anything, you're going to the deepest, darkest hole that they can find. If you're a Democrat, well, they'll let you off without bail. But that's the system that Joe Biden and his acolytes have moved us to. We no longer have a justice system. We have a legal system that no longer is anything fair. It's the country is being run at the behest of bureaucrats, to the benefit of bureaucrats, and to the benefit of Joe Biden's friends and colleagues. They all see that coming to a really quick and an immediate end if Donald Trump wins the presidency again, which I absolutely think that he is definitely going to do. And all they got to do is keep prosecuting him, keep showing Americans that there's a two-tiered system of justice or a legal system, and keep doing what they're doing, and Donald Trump will get reelected. Now, here's another very concerning point about the Joe Biden presidency. And I think that most people are aware of this, maybe not. But Joe Biden has been wrong in every single foreign policy decision that he's ever made. Lest us forget that he was the guy saying we shouldn't kill Osama bin Laden. I don't like to give the Obama administration credit for anything, but they did a good job there. Killing the guy that orchestrated 9/11 was absolutely in America's best interest. But now the Biden administration is giving, moments of silence, reverence to the guy whose nickname is the Butcher of Tehran. And I quote, "Ideological rot is proliferating throughout Washington, D.C. On Monday afternoon, the Biden administration sent their condolences to Iran for the death of the Tehran regime's president, leading to lots of anger and confusion amongst Americans who believe that our country should defend the basic principles of our founding and not those of the terrorist organization that runs Iran." The dossier, which is where this article came from, is a reader-supported publication. And on occasion, they publish different articles like this. Now, let's get back to it. In tragic and revolting fashion, our government expressed its official condolences for the now deceased Ibrahim Raisi, who was nicknamed the Butcher of Tehran for his role in overseeing the execution of thousands of political prisoners. The U.S. Institute of Peace describes Raisi as, quote, "a pivotal player in the mass execution of thousands." As a member of Iran's death committee, Raisi decreed that all prisoners, steadfast in their support for the opposition and waging a war on God, were condemned to execution. In 2024, Americans live under a government committed to a combination of progressivism and nihilistic nothingness, under a series of bureaucratic agencies that don't stand for anything other than leftism and the capture and retention of power. Our founders would almost certainly observe the mess in D.C. as something completely detached to their declaration and vision for America. The quote, "The United States expresses its official condolences for the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Amir Abdollahian, and other members of their delegation in a helicopter crash in northwest Iran," read a State Department statement released at about noon. "As Iran selects a new president, we affirm our support for the Iranian people and their struggle for human rights and fundamental freedoms." Right after praising a guy that was responsible from taking all fundamental freedoms away from all Iranians. Let's not forget, this guy's nickname is the Butcher of Tehran. I mean, how out of step could the Biden administration be? There are 90 million people in Iran suffering under the weight of the barbarian mullahs. Imagine how these poor souls are feeling after witnessing that the country that is supposed to, at a bare minimum, stand for unalienable freedoms, but are instead excusing the actions of their captors. To be clear, we're no advocate for the idea that we should repeat the lunacy of hyper-interventionist foreign policymaking and proceed to forcefully intervene in Iran's political system. The era of Team America, world police, is coming to an end, and necessarily so. However, committing to a hands-off approach to the internal affairs of foreign governments doesn't mean the United States needs to express condolences for a throwback theocratic thug. Now, we've burned through another busy broadcast hour on the program, my friends. Wide Right Turn is next, and Joey's getting into all of his candidate interviews, so stay tuned to the Independence Network. from the base of the Bighorns. I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.